You found the podcast, Go Beyond the Brief, where we take a deep dive into the societal currents shaping our lives. Together, we'll explore the often unseen forces at play. We'll examine the research, dissect the data, and most importantly, if you're seeking to understand what's shaping our society,
Right.
this is the
But
place.
instead of lines just being redrawn every 10 years, picture them shifting constantly in this escalating battle, a fight that could genuinely change who holds power in Washington. That's what we're diving into today. We're looking at this high-stakes redistricting war, specifically between Texas and California. It's really become this tit-for-tat situation, almost like an arms race for controlling the U.S. House. Now, our understanding here, it's pulled from a whole range of sources, legal analyses, news reports, political commentary. They really lay out the picture. And our mission, well, it's to unpack what's going on, the surprising facts, the legal moves, and honestly, the big implications of it all. We want to help you get what this means for, American democracy.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is how different this is from the usual redistricting we see after a census. States are jumping in mid-decade now. They're treating these district lines like a constantly adaptable weapon for partisan gain.
A partisan weapon.
Exactly. And it's not just about winning a few more seats. It feels like a bigger shift, something that could really erode some basic democratic norms. It makes you ask that question, are the people in power picking their voters instead of the other way around?
That's a really critical point. Okay, so Texas kicked this off, this mid-decade scramble.
Yeah.
What was their reasoning? Why now?
Well, the Texas Republicans got this started. They pointed to massive population growth. Something like 2 million people added since the 2020 census.
2 million, wow.
Yeah, big numbers. So their argument is they need to redraw lines to get back to the one person, one vote principle, make things fair again based on population. And legally speaking, they feel they're on pretty solid ground based on federal precedent.
Okay, what precedents are those?
2 key Supreme Court cases. First, there's LULAC v. Perry. That was 2006. It basically said states are allowed to redraw district lines mid-decade if they want. Texas actually did this back in 2003, remember? It was quite the drama. Democratic lawmakers literally fled the state to try and stop it.
Right, I remember that. Denying the quorum.
Exactly. And the second case is Rucho v. Common Cause, much more recent, 2019. And this one's huge because it essentially said federal courts can't step in to rule on partisan gerrymandering claims.
Okay, so that took away a major check.
It really did. It gave states a lot more latitude to draw lines for political advantage without federal courts intervening.
So with that legal backing, what's the potential impact? How many seats are we talking about for Texas?
The projections suggest their plan could net them up to 5 new Republican seats in the House.
5 seats.
Yep. That could shift their congressional delegation pretty dramatically from, say, 25 Republicans and 13 Democrats currently to potentially 30 Republicans and only 8 Democrats. That's a big swing.
Okay, so Texas makes a big move. California, obviously, isn't just going to watch this happen. What's their counter strategy? And what are the obstacles?
Right. Governor Newsom in California is framing their response as purely defensive. He literally said, "We have got to fight fire with fire" against what they see as a Texas power grab.
Fight fire with fire.
Yeah. Okay. But they have a major hurdle. California voters actually approved an Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, the CRC. It's been drawing the map since 2010 specifically to keep politicians out of the process.
So the people deliberately tried to prevent this sort of thing.
Precisely. So Newsom's proposal is actually a constitutional amendment passed by the legislature that would temporarily suspend the CRC's power over U.S. House districts just for the next few election cycles, 2026, 2028, 2030.
Temporarily bypass the Independent Commission.
Yeah. The legislature would draw the lines, and then power would supposedly revert back to the CRC after 2030. But this also directly challenges a longstanding California Supreme Court ruling against mid-decade redistricting in the state.
So it's a complex legal and political maneuver, and they need it done quickly.
Very quickly. It needs a 2/3 vote in the legislature by late August next year, 2025. And then it has to go to the voters in a special election, probably November 2025.
It does raise a really tricky question, doesn't it? I mean, is it okay to temporarily dismantle a democratic reform like that independent commission in the name of, well, saving democracy from what you see as an outside partisan threat?
Mm-hmm.
Or does that just end up normalizing the exact kind of political manipulation you claim you're fighting against?
That's the ethical tightrope, isn't it? It's framed as a necessary temporary defense. But overriding a voter-approved body, even for a limited time, could definitely set a precedent. You risk, damaging public faith in those kinds of reforms.
And what's the goal for California Democrats if they pull this off? Same number of seats.
Pretty much the mirror image of Texas. They're aiming to gain up to 5 additional Democratic congressional seats. The idea is to directly neutralize whatever Texas gains. This could shift their delegation from, say, 9 Republicans and 43 Democrats to maybe 4 Republicans and 48 Democrats. They'd likely target districts in places like Orange County, San Diego, the Central Valley.
So zooming out then, this isn't just Texas versus California in isolation.
Not at all. This is absolutely part of a bigger national picture. Think about it. The Republican majority in the U.S. House is incredibly narrow right now. Just 7 seats. Democrats only need a net gain of 3 for control.
So every seat counts. Intensely.
Intensely. And this kind of tit-for-tat redistricting, this arms race, it just chips away at democratic norms. It fuels polarization, makes people trust elections less. It gets back to that core problem. It feels like politicians choosing voters. And with the Supreme Court stepping back and Rucho basically saying federal courts won't police partisan gerrymandering, well, it leaves a void. That's why you hear louder calls now for some kind of national standards for redistricting.
Right. So wrapping this up, this whole Texas-California fight, it's way more than just grabbing a few seats in Congress. It really gets to the heart of the integrity and maybe even the legitimacy of the democratic process in America today.
Absolutely. It leaves us with a pretty stark thought, doesn't it? When the actual rules of the game, the district lines themselves become this fluid, this weaponized. How do we make sure that voters, still trust the whole process? How do we ensure people believe their vote actually counts?